A month ago, I think beginning on or about September 23rd, we spent several continuous days talking about a deep dive, an essay by Robert Kagan that was published in the Washington Post. Our constitutional crisis is already here. That was a warm-up for the conversation that's about to unfold because Douglas Schoen and Carly Cooperman are about to release a book. It comes out next week. It's called America, Unite or Die: How to Save Our Democracy. You know Doug Schoen because he's the renowned pollster, the Democratic political analyst. Carly Cooperman is the CEO of Schoen Cooperman Research, and both of them join me now. Douglas, let me begin with you. When you first saw the Kagan piece, you thought what?
I thought, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, ditto, ditto. Meaning, in terms of what Trump and his supporters did, I certainly believe then and believe now that he put democracy at risk. But I believe, based on the work that Carly and I have done, the complete breakdown of our system on every level, in terms of our domestic policy, our foreign policy, in terms of any consensus at all, has put our democratic values and our democratic system at risk. So I thought what Kagan said was right, reasonable, responsible, but most of all, necessary and important.
Carly, is it too late? I mean, the book is How to Save Democracy. Are there fundamental steps, that practical things we can be doing, those of us who want to protect democracy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that acknowledging, the necessity that there is in this country to be able to unite, to be able to compromise, to be able to acknowledge that what's going on the far left and the far right is really just pulling our country apart. And part of our book is about detailing some of these reforms in terms of electoral reforms to improve our process, and reforms at the congressional level, the judicial level, and legislative reforms as well. But also just from a big picture perspective, it's acknowledging that it's so important to be able to come together and not let the fringes of our country take over.
Well, and Doug, what I liked, I haven't read the book yet, but you were kind enough to provide a short essay for Smerconish.com, which we've been distributing. You're asking of the left and the right. It's not just about January 6th and those who propagate the big lie, although that's a really big part of this, but explain how there's something everybody's got to give.
Look, I'm one of those who believes that the violence last spring of 2020, was also a threat to our democracy. Now, look, I don't for a second minimize the tragedy of the killing of George Floyd and other violence against African Americans and people of color. I don't minimize that at all, but I do think that looting and crime, defunding the police, similarly undermines the credibility of our system. I'd say what Trump and his allies did was more serious, but both of them taken together, as Carly correctly said, put our system at risk. Nobody's working together on common solutions to problems. Everybody is pointing fingers or trying to destabilize to their own political or personal benefit.
As you two wrote, as we argue in our forthcoming book, we endanger the very foundations of our society if we condemn only the violence and law-breaking committed by our political opponents, but fail to condemn it when it's committed by our political allies. Thus, we understand the concerns of those on the right who believe that those on the left have, when it has suited them, been willing to put our democratic values and public safety at risk for political purposes. And I, of course, agree with that. Carly, let me ask this question of you. It's more of a statement, I guess, than a question. I worry today about things that in 30 years, in my case, of close paying attention, I never worried about before. I'm used to us having debates on foreign policy or, as currently, the size of the societal safety net. But for the first time in my life, I find that I'm fearful of whether this great experiment can last. Give me reason for optimism.
I mean, I think your concern is right. I think that, what we see now is, a whole new level in terms of the heightened intensity that comes along with every single disagreement from the two parties and every single debate that that comes. It certainly feels like an intensity that just was not something that we saw in, I don't know, 4, 6, 10 years ago. In terms of optimism, I think that, even the people coming up in a younger generation, people, Gen Z, millennials, like people really care. And I think they want to believe that there's hope. And we see this in our polling as well. Generally, there is the belief that things will get better, and that there is a desire by everyone to be able to move forward. But it certainly is going to require, a willingness to be able to listen to others and be on both sides of both sides of the aisle to bring together these, like, the need for compromise and reform.
Doug, for 20 years, you were Mike Bloomberg's principal pollster, senior advisor. I'd like to think that most of the country falls somewhere between the ideological fringes. That's who you're trying to reach with the book, right? You're trying to energize people who feel they don't see themselves on TV. They don't feel that they're represented in the media generally. How do we do that?
Well, that's why we have a whole section, as Carly alluded to in the book, of compromise and practical solutions. We need to get the center, which is by far the biggest group in America, though hardly the most motivated, working to force solutions on the budget, tax policy, foreign policy, so that we have a degree of consensus about our values, our culture, and our way forward. In the absence of that, we say America will die. That's our point, as Kagan said, and as others have said. So this is a serious, serious problem, as Michael, you yourself suggested. We're worried about things in this book we never dreamed we'd be writing about or talking about ever. But rest assured, our enemies, the Chinese, the Russians, they understand that they have managed wittingly and unwittingly to destabilize our society.
In the book, America Unite or Die, Carly, election reforms, nonpartisan redistricting, implementing ranked choice voting, ending winner-take-all in the Electoral College, encouraging the creation of a centrist third party, expanding participation in presidential debates. I agree with each and every one of them, but I'm mindful that some of the people who are causing the problems for the country, we need them on board to bring about these reforms.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the idea with these reforms is that we're trying to open up the system in a way that brings in candidates that don't just fall on the extreme right and the extreme left. And, we're really just trying to come up with different ways and put forward different solutions to bring in a wider variety of candidates that reach a wider variety of voters, and that also engage people in the middle that often get left out in party primaries. And yes, it's absolutely true that some people who are already part of the system want to keep things the way they are, so that it continues their ability to get elected. But we are seeing some of these reforms take place on a state-by-state basis over the past few years, and it's our hope that that can continue.
Doug, I note, and he was here last week, Andrew Yang has left the Democratic fold after, having been a standard bearer, attempted to be, running for president in the Democratic primary process, and then in New York City seeking the mayoralty. So there's yet another sign of someone who is, I would say, seeing the light.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I believe that unless people like Andrew Yang, who offered a number of innovative ideas like the universal basic income, greater use of technology in politics, empowering younger people. We need people like that. We need them in the center, not on the far left or the far right. So I applaud his advocacy of a third party. What Carly and I are saying is we have to go across the whole gamut of reforms to try to find a series of them that will make this system work, encourage, as she says correctly, moderates to run and participate, and get this consensus that has operated in America for so long vibrant and vital again.
Doug, is this more than a book? In other words, the book comes out next week. It's called America Unite or Die, How to Save Our Democracy. Is there more of a campaign that you'll be working on beyond the publication?
As we speak, Michael, we are involved in reform efforts around the country. We are working with individuals, groups, interest groups on a variety of different reforms. This is a mission. This is a cause. It goes well beyond anything for us that involves our narrow pecuniary interests. It involves what we are deeply and passionately concerned about. And as I said, for me, a longtime veteran, and for Carly, an emerging star who is now on the AAPC, our professional organizations. 40 under 40 is a star. Let's hope other younger professionals join the cause as well, Michael.
I just have to say, I had hoped that in the last cycle, your former boss would have changed all of this by himself running as an independent. Instead, he decided to go the Democratic route. It didn't work out so well after that first debate performance. But Doug, you had to have with him studied the landscape and come to a conclusion, or at least he did, that it just wasn't doable. Third party.
That really is the issue, Michael. I would tell you, as somebody who over the years in the past had encouraged the mayor to seriously consider the third party option, when he decided, and I think correctly, that the one thing the two parties agree on is that there shouldn't be third forces in politics and that getting elected as an independent was impossible, his decision to run as a Democrat was certainly a rational and reasonable one because of the way our system is rigged against outsiders and independents, even those like Mayor Bloomberg, who are very well qualified, obviously well funded, and support the kind of things that you and I deem important. It just tells you how really corrupted, and I use that word advisedly, our system is.
Thank you for the sneak peek. A week from now, America, Unite or Die, How to Save Our Democracy. Carly Cooperman, I wish you good things. Douglas Schoen, thank you so much for coming back to the program.
As always,
I really
Michael,
appreciate it.
thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it sounds right in the wheelhouse of the sort of folks who listen to a program like mine. So we look forward to your book and hope that it's a bestseller.